Hello and welcome to another episode of The Real Deal with Josh and Charles. As ever, 'tis I, Josh, joined by my co-host, one of the loves of my life, a man renowned the world over for having not one but two lenses in his glasses, clocking in at about, 5'9"?
Wait, are you talking about my height or my prescription?
Oh, your height.
My height. I don't know. I mean, last time I measured, I was 5'11", I think.
Are we the same height?
I don't know. I mean, we don't look the same, so it's hard to gauge.
That's true, and I think it's great for our listeners that we paint this sort of portrait of just two men, so different. One
different.
white and 5'11", the other white and 5'11", both brunette.
We both have beards sometimes.
This is kind of the big thing. No glasses on this guy.
Ooh, yep. My brother, he does this thing where he thinks people look the same if they share just a single trait. So they'll have the same nostril earring. They'll have the same, the way their chin forms at the bottom of their jaw. And they're like, oh, those guys look exactly the same. But if you were to cover up their faces with everything else, it's just, no. You can't look the same because of one trait, Philip. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and if we're continuing Brother Call-Out Corner, which I think is a great new addition to this vibrant and ever-growing podcast.
You know, how many, we're going to live in one of those Buckminster Fuller houses where there's just 1,000 corners.
A geodesic dome.
Around. Yeah, the geodesic dome houses. And we can just, here's a Call-Out Brother Corner. It's in the, up there in the ceiling because it's a dome house.
Well, this edition of Call-Out Brother Corner also lines up neatly with Trek Talk, the newest feature of the podcast that enters a bold and unprecedented week 2.
I think this is our longest corner.
Yeah.
Corner visit.
So
we do have so many, though, so it's very hard to get back to them all.
Right, but I think we're really on a roll here, so I'm just going to keep going with this because it's magic. So I got a message from my brother today asking me, seemingly with no context, if I'd ever gotten into the Beastie Boys, the wildly, overwhelmingly popular rap group that has won countless Grammys, soundtracked much of popular culture in America for the last several decades. Yeah, he asked me, seemingly out of the blue, if I liked the Beastie Boys. And I was like, yeah.
Wait, which boys?
The Beastie Boys?
Oh, those boys. Yeah.
You've heard of these boys.
Right. The Beastie Boys.
Even a relative recluse like you knows that there's a pop culture phenomena called the Beastie Boys who have been releasing records since the mid-1980s.
Yeah, for a while I thought they were the Bestie Boys, and I just
That's
thought
not
they were
true.
Really good friends.
Are you doing a bit, or is that real?
You never can tell with me.
I think that's the magic of the theater of the mind with radio,
Or the theater of the mind. That's all we have is the Bestie Boys and brothers. So he asked you, he's like, all right, so do you know these beasties?
Right, and I'm like, yeah, I know these beasties. He's like, yeah, well, you wouldn't believe this, but they're in the new Star Trek movie.
Wait, really? The actors were played by the Beastie Boys?
No, one of the climactic music
right,
cues is
Sabotage.
Sabotage.
That scene that I hated. I hated that scene.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad scene.
So your brother was super thrilled though that the Beastie Boys finally made it into a motion picture soundtrack?
Yeah, and then felt the need to reach out to me about it, which is I'm not complaining about, but it was just a great moment where I was like, Mike, I got news for you. I know the Beastie Boys and I've seen the new Star Trek, meaning we are very much on the same page with this whole issue,
So what was his point? What did he come back to you with?
He seemed pleasantly surprised about them being in the movie. It was really endearing. It was great.
That's nice.
It was a nice thing. So I guess that on my end wraps up both Trek Talk and Brother Call-Out Corner. Oh, God.
Yeah, actually, I could maybe tell a story about Trek and Brothers. Because I saw Star Trek Beyond with my brother.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to this new theater. Have you been to a theater where all the seats not only do they recline, but they have like buttons to recline.
Oh yeah. When on my birthday
Man.
last year, when I saw Mad Max Fury Road in 3D, I was reclining, and
That sounds better.
yeah.
Yeah, like buttons, and then you can reach over and what I did to my brother was I hit the unrecline button, and then I hit the recline button.
That's
and,
good.
It was funny.
Yeah. You're a bit of a scamp with the older brother, having a bit of fun at his expense.
Yeah, that's all they're. So that's all he's good for, I guess. But maybe brothers are good for things.
I'm inclined to think that way, though. Right now, with the assistant of my charming, lovely, and incredibly patient fiance, I am buying a suit, or renting a suit rather, for my brother's wedding, at which I must deliver a speech. So right now,
Oh no,
the efficacy of having brothers is gravely in doubt. But Mike, if you're listening, I'm very excited. Lisa's a wonderful person.
I like that comment you made on Facebook about that picture. It was very funny, Josh. You're very funny.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll just get into that. Lisa, who is my brother's fiance, posted a photo of her with my brother with the caption, something to the effect of, "I get to marry the most wonderful man in the world." And I cheekily commented, "Is Mike blocking him?" Which, if I don't say so myself, is pretty funny.
Very good. It's what brothers, as we've said, are for.
Yeah. And loans. Long-term loans with a low interest rate.
All right, well, that concludes those corners to potentially be visited again in a future episode.
If I can be so bold, I want to open a corner called Gratitude Corner, where I'm excited to say that I'm recording this episode on a brand spanking new Audio-Technica condenser mic purchased for me, I'm assuming at great expense, from my dear friend Charles Hobby.
Well, yeah, I knew you weren't going to do it, and if the podcast would go on, it just had to happen. So I went on to Amazon.com, and they let you send things to anybody in the country, by the way,
wow.
Or maybe even the world. I think that's really astounding. It's like I can just buy something and send it anywhere I want.
Now, can I send it to the Yorktown station in Star Trek's Beyond?
No. I don't believe so, because that's not in this world.
Oh, fair enough.
But you get my point. It's just like it's limitless, really. I never really thought about it. I always thought like, I'm going to buy something, I'm going to buy it and send it to myself. But I could just buy anything and send it to anybody. Like I could just anything, anybody.
When you say limitless, are you referring to the Bradley Cooper psychological drama?
Yeah, I bought that and sent it to some guy in Minnesota.
I think it's great that you can dream big and swing for the fences, Charles, with the help of Amazon.com, who, if you're listening, no one endorses this podcast or sponsors it. So I guess you can
what?
really...
Amazon never will, because you know how you can put Amazon links on your website, and when our one visitor goes and clicks on it and buys something, we get a little kickback?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I live in the state of Maine and you're a lazy son of a bitch, we can't do that because they've stopped doing that with Maine because of our governor and his silly little laws.
Yeah, your governor, what, LePage? That fella?
Yeah, total asshole. He talks... I don't know. Why? This isn't a political show, so I guess I won't continue talking.
I think
about
we're
it.
like at the... We can call that corner the policy desk.
Ooh, yeah. Man, this is the corner. Can we just call this the corner? And have a lot of corners and then go out of the corner. Yeah, but
I don't think you had a follow-up to that. I think that was it. You just thought of the corner. Tried to bail on it pretty quickly, but I'm going to draw attention to it.
It was looking good from the other corner, but as soon as I got to the corner, not working. But yeah, LePage tried to actually it's an interesting topic if you like money and stuff, because nowadays when you do your taxes, you're supposed to say, oh, and hey, I bought all this shit online this year because I didn't pay state taxes on it, and I should have. And apparently everybody lies in that questionnaire part of their taxes. So the state of Maine they are estimating losing $20 million a year on taxes, sales tax. So
well, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Everyone from Maine is a filthy liar, and I mean that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really funny look is that, given the choice about lying on your taxes, most people will. I certainly do. If the government's listening, I mean, you audited me once before, but I never do that little sales tax thing. What is it?
Well,
I'm
I think
supposed to keep track of all the shit I buy?
we've all learned a lot today
It's
about financial
insane.
management, the dubious ethics of my co-host, and the great state of Maine, known mostly
Yeah.
for being almost totally depopulated and once having been part of Massachusetts.
Yeah. Oh boy.
We are
So where
off
were
to
we?
a raging start to this week's episode.
Oh yeah, gratitude corner. So you're welcome. I hope you love it as much as I love it. I miss it. And did it come with a little tripod?
It came with a tripod, but I have eschewed that, and I'm just holding it.
Okay. I am using a long thingy stand now,
Mm.
the metal thing. So, but you can get one of those. I didn't send that because it was, more money that I didn't have. But
But let me encourage you to send it in the future when you do have money. And that's
Okay.
Gratitude Corner. I look forward to many more installments of me thanking Charles for things he's purchased for me. And with that out of the way, I think our housekeeping is done. And
Yeah, we
Charles,
wrapped that up.
Speaking of housekeeping,
Oh, good. Yeah. Which one is it?
yeah, there's a few ways to go with this, but I'm going to play
Yeah.
it safe and swing at the underhanded pitch and say, boy, that housekeeper in Fascination by Jean Rollin sure is up to some stuff in Fascination.
They certainly were. So, Josh was in charge of the picks this week because of the travesty that was last week.
And I think it's best. I want to point out that last week we chose a film title with a gendered pronoun in it. And so horrible and underwhelming was, I suppose, masculinity at large as a result of that pick, that this week we focus on two films that prominently feature female casts. And what a refreshing gust of air it's been after the waking holocaust of Swiss Army Man and Harry Potter 5. Two movies which I cannot stress enough. Even an episode later, do not watch those movies.
Yeah, you don't like them.
I didn't. I watched, much by happenstance, my friend Henry, who is a dear friend and an avowed metalhead and a fan of the occult, took me to an erotically themed film series at the Nighthawk in Brooklyn to see Fascination. And I had just seen the new Ghostbusters, and I thought to myself, well, by my count, that's two movies. I'm on. This is crazy.
That's all you have to do this week.
Yeah, that was it. So, Charles, I want to throw it to you because I kind of steered the ship this time. So I want to see what kind of paddling you did with these two films.
Well, as much as I wanted to be angry because you had the power this week, I really enjoyed your picks this week. Fascination. I'd never seen a Jean Rollin movie before, if that's how you pronounce it. And I'd never seen that Ghostbusters movie before. So it was really, a new experiences all around. You want to start with the French one from the 70s?
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
1979.
Boom.
A film about blood.
It was about blood, and I was expecting it to be about vampires because I think some blurb that I was reading about it said it was a vampire movie, but it's not a vampire movie at all. Is it?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's definitely about people who drink blood.
Yeah, but I guess so. I mean, it just wasn't really. It didn't seem to me to fit into the vampire canon. It was more into the, I don't know, like death cult, more of a creepy group. They didn't seem to. They were weird. I don't know, man. It was an experience. I watched it without pants to prepare myself for the erotic evening.
Uh-huh. And now, are you a briefs fellow? No, you're a boxer briefs kind of guy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the little tight, low rise, Uniqlo.
All right, let's keep it
boxer
PG-13,
brief.
Charles.
This is the erotica lady episode, so no, we're gonna go full R. I think.
Okay.
Full R.
Yeah, not too wild, but like a little saucy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a film about a thief who, with some foul deeds in his past, rushes off into the French countryside with a stolen box of gold coins and finds himself in a abandoned chateau populated by two waifs clad only in slips who seduce him and help him fight off his gangster foes, all leading up to a gathering of a cabal of the most unsettling fixations.
I actually really like this movie. I don't know that I've ever seen a softcore porn movie, really, because that's sort of what this was. I'm sure you've seen hundreds.
I've seen softcore porn in my days because I remember, this is part of the massive generational divide between me and Charles. But Charles, when I was young, if your friend's parents had Cinemax or HBO, you could occasionally watch softcore pornography at 1 a.m. on demand if you were very anxious and sweaty about it. And I remember sitting in a room full of other, I'm sure 12 or 13-year-old boys, silently watching softcore pornography.
Oh, weird.
Well, it's a weird time to be alive. You're middle school, you're learning about your body, and you're learning about sex, and what better way to do it than in the least comfortable possible way for a bunch of completely sexually illiterate young people.
Yeah, with all your friends.
All my friends.
I want to clarify my statement and say that it's not that I've never seen a softcore porn movie. I've seen, parts, but I've never actually sat down and watched it as a movie from start to finish. I did the same thing. I used to watch Stargate SG-1 when it was on Showtime, and you know how that is when you're when you were a kid. I think it's funny how pornography has just gotten easier and easier and easier to access. I'm sure our parent, you talk about just getting magazines and dirty things in print, and eventually got to tapes and stuff, and it's just when I was in middle school, I would have to watch shit on the TV in the living room at just when no one was home, or hope that no one was home. Nowadays, you can just get on your little phone anywhere you want and just touch yourself.
Yeah, get into that. What kind of touch?
Magic.
Okay, so you painted quite a picture for us.
Yeah. I used to watch Showtime's, whatever it's called, show, I guess. Showtime show, called Stargate SG-1. And it was the last show before the sexy time started. So my dad, an avid taper, would always, when he set the recording, it would be start 3 minutes early and 3 minutes late, just in case, the timing from the cable people were wrong. So every time we recorded Stargate, I'd get 3 minutes of boobs. And it was great. So I watched Stargate and then just finished it off with a little Showtime sleaze minute.
I'm happy we've recorded this because it's the first instance of Stargate SG-1 leading to sex ever in recorded history.
I mean, close to sex, yeah. But yeah, it was good. I was a happy middle schooler.
Those were the golden years.
Yeah.
What a wondrous time to be alive.
Longer.
Yeah. Well, Charles, thank you for that illuminating glimpse into the past of the hobby man. And how did the eroticism of Fascination match with those 3 minutes of VHS tape quality dubbed Showtime softcore pornography?
Well, as an adult, I think it's I'm glad that I watched it as an adult rather than a child, because this movie is actually full of all sorts of really cool shit. And it's really interesting that, especially back, it seemed in the 70s and in seasons 1 through 3 of Game of Thrones, sex is used in aid of telling an elaborate story, or maybe not elaborate, but just a close story about other things, about emotions and these people. And if I were a kid, I probably just would have, been too crazy over the nakedness to even be able to focus on it. So, as an adult, as a man who's seen tits, as a man who's seen a butt every now and again, I can just, watch them and accept those, but still venture into the story unharmed.
And you say you use those terms with such confidence that it definitely speaks to a life full of lovemaking and eroticism.
Oh yeah, I'm a lover.
You're a seasoned lover. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I know where it is.
Where
it all happens.
Yeah, no, sure. In French chateaus, in misty bogs.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It can really happen anywhere as long as you know where it happens.
Yeah, and I think that's probably as much detail as we need to. I think we've shown our credentials. I think the world's
Yeah.
seen us now. We know where it happens, and I think that's enough said right there.
Well, I think that was the subtitle in French to Fascination, or maybe it was the actual title in French.
But okay, so putting aside these lusty words that we're renowned for, what I liked about Fascination and its micro budget qualities is that it veers wildly from like legitimately hilarious schlock to moments of breathtaking cinematographic achievement. The sort of canned dialogue, almost non-existent acting, and hilarious camera wobbles on awkward sweeps aside, there are a few unforgettable visuals from Fascination that I can picture as clear as day, even a week or two later, that make this a lasting movie to me.
Totally. That opening scene was awesome. What a way to start with these people just standing in a slaughterhouse.
There's a shot at the beginning of the movie. By the way, this movie employs one of my favorite bits of exposition where somebody actually says what year it is, where they're standing in an abattoir. These like well-dressed types are standing in an abattoir with a hilariously jovial butcher, and they're all sipping little brandy cups of blood. And one of the characters, who I believe does not appear in the movie again, leans over and says, "This is a thing we do if you have anemia in 1910."
Yeah.
Which is so charming. And
well, he wanted to make sure we weren't confused and thought this was maybe a band of play actors or
worse, steampunks.
Yeah. But actually, I was reading up on Jean Rollin because I didn't know who he was, and apparently he likes to set either things in the past or have the past come into the future. I guess he was just like you and I, he was a nostalgist at heart.
A rank sentimentalist.
So he just wanted to make sure that we got that, the 1905 or 1910. I forget which.
But yeah, so in this moment where they're drinking the ox blood, there's this incredible shot of one of the young women just playing with blood on her lips while she smiles. That is one of my favorite shots in a movie ever. It has this Lynchian quality of being uncomfortably close to something grotesque, and it dehumanizes her form enough that we're just seeing this mouth expressing ecstasy while this blood runs over her lips, and he sits on that shot for a minute, and it is hypnotizing. It is disturbing and sensual, and I think it's one of the most powerful ways I've seen a director set up a movie and its themes just by watching a woman's mouth smile as she tastes blood on her lips. And man, that is really one of the best openings I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it was a knockout. It got me into it. And I think if it hadn't started that way, it would have been a little harder to really get it into it, because you never really would have been sure. But starting with such, a force, a presence from the filmmaker, it's like, okay, we're obviously in the realm of something interesting. And even though it gets a little zany, the acting isn't super good, and the plot just sort of jerks along to where it needs to go. Yeah, it definitely is. It's got stuff in it. It's got there's a lot, just like these little moments, I think, which is why I don't really, the softcore porn movie, it's just like a weird thing, because obviously it's there to draw people to come to it so they can see sex things, but obviously this man was also interested in doing other things, so he certainly includes elements of both.
Well, certainly, like the in this movie, the sex is a pretense from start to finish, because what the women in this movie want is to drink the blood of this man, and they use sex to lure him into the sense of security, and they make him feel like he has this masculine power, and the entire time they're just preparing him to be slaughtered, which is delightful. Yeah, the plot of the film is confusingly belabored, given how almost non-existent it is, and he kind of, uses a pretty bare bones setup just to get to these set pieces that are pretty unforgettable. The poster of the film depicts probably the takeaway visual from the movie, and I tell me if you agree with this, but at one point, one of the two young women emerges from a stable having slit some throats, dressed in a black cloak, holding a massive scythe, and the chateau has a moat, and there's only one long, low bridge across the moat. And she just comes up on this woman trapped on that bridge with this huge blade. And it is a really exceptional shot and definitely a, like, you know, breath catching in your throat kind of moment. And it's really unforgettable.
Yeah. And I think it also, there's also this really complex relationship triangle between the two original ladies and this guy, where there's like this strange in the process of luring him and keeping him safe from the people that want their gold back. They seduce him a couple times, and it sort of seems, I mean, I don't know, I'd like your opinion on this, but like it seems as though there's like jealousy between the two, and then at the end, you know, they run off together and everyone just sort of dies. They all just sort of, except for, I forget their names, one of the ladies, the original ladies. But yeah, it's a really complicated story about maybe love. I don't know. It doesn't seem like anyone actually ended up loving each other. They just sort of all consumed each other.
Yeah, of the two original young ladies in the movie, they're joined later by a coterie of bloodthirsty women in veils. But the brunette character claims to love this young man who, to her, represents a way out of this blood cult of death and the consumption of fresh human blood. But in the end, she doesn't love him. She's just hungry. And I think what the through line for that plot that undermines her claims of love is that, if you remember, early in the film, the thief is shot and a bullet grazes his neck, and he's bleeding from his neck. And from the moment they meet this character, he's bleeding. And that really sets up, you know, the only possible fate he could have, which is to be consumed. So, yeah, and I think it's a question about, like, you know, fetishism and eroticism and, you know, is what is motivating her to treat him in this way. Is there what is this idea of love? Is love anything more than a kind of fascination? The vote in this film, seemingly not.
Yeah, it's definitely, it hits some hard topics, and it does it in a way that, you know, it's yeah. Did you see Underwater Love?
No,
I heard it was good. I haven't seen it either, but it's a Pinku film, but it was shot by the guy who shot all of Wong Kar-wai's movies, so it has that like clout of being an art film at the same time. And I never got around to seeing it, but I heard it was really good, and I just it's fun that these directors, I don't know, you know, especially back in the 70s, seemed like there was all sorts of just shitty sex movies that were being made. So it was cool to see that they, like, the fringe softcore directors were actually putting it to some really interesting use, and like using sex as the, you know, main topic of conversation and really showing it to us, but then talking about all these deeper ideas about what sex is.
Well, the parallels between him as a thief obsessed with money and her love ultimately being the same drive to consume that's mirrored in his love of that money. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, a lot of layers to that idea. Because, you know, he's all about that money, man. He wants to split. He doesn't care about, he's not in love. He doesn't want to spend time with these women. He even seems to have sex with them out of just like a sort of as a means to flex his own strength. And he really just wants to escape with that gold. And, you know, his love of that money, you know, is mirrored in her love of his blood. And, you know, at the end, they're both left empty and alone.
Just like us all.
Just like us all. Man, this is, just realized, what a week. But yes, Fascination. Charles, would you want to be erotically toyed with by a group of women and then murdered and have your blood drank by them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds nice. Sounds fun. How is it watching it when in public with a bunch of other people?
Well, again, the parts of the movie that are patently hilarious, like everyone's outfits and manner of semi-acting and facial hair, made a lot of it. It was a funny watch in public because some of the lines and some of the deliveries are very stilted and awkward. So a lot of the like dialogueless parts of just cryptic cultist shit happening in this castle were extremely moving, and the colors inside the building are really lush and kind of like a Kubrick style candlelit, very warm, rich colors. The rest of it, yeah, there's some funny parts of this movie. It's, I did not watch it with a straight face, and while there is sex in it, it's really not pulse pounding stuff. I don't really know. I'm trying to think of if most movies don't depict sex in a super. I mean, outside of like straight up pornography, I found most movies have a pretty awkward relationship with sex. I'm trying to think of a movie that's supposed to be erotically charged that actually delivers on that. I remember Striptease on TBS with Demi Moore. Again, harkening back to my high school days. That was effective about a decade ago. Haven't seen it since, but
I've never seen it.
yeah, I don't think it's a great movie. I'm guessing it's not.
I mean, it's supposed to not be a great movie at all, right?
Yeah, if I had to guess, it's quite bad. But I don't. I think the criteria by which I was examining it at 15 was different from, say, an Ebert. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was fun. I'd never heard of it. I think some of his other movies had been, on the Criterion collection, so I probably should have, heard of this guy by now. But it was new to me, and I guess I would check out some of his other stuff. It's just like, it is funny, back. There's certain things in film nowadays that's sort of just taken for granted. Like acting seems to be much better than it was a while ago for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, because we've been acting for, I don't know, millennia, it seems like, probably. But, yeah, the acting wasn't very good in this movie.
Well, actually, let me say this. The last line of the movie is one of my favorite last lines in any movie ever. That was amazing. When she comes back from, like, what was they called, a rookery? Like, where pigeons live?
Yeah.
I don't know. She comes back from, spoiler, having killed and, we are led to believe, drank the blood of this pretty douchey French guy. That's another thing. Watching the French get killed and eaten is definitely a good way to emotionally distance me from it. Because I'm mostly welcoming it. So, but no, she comes back and the leader of their circle of blood drinking women sees her across this bridged moat and says, "You look so beautiful with the blood in your lips like that." And God, yeah, man, that was I loved that. That really took it home. And I think, just like on a larger comment, any movie that slam dunks that last moment, I'll probably like. I've seen some pretty bad movies. Yeah, I mean, I think about Saw. Saw, like, if they didn't bring it home in that last scene, that would have been a pretty shitty movie.
Yeah.
But the last scene of Saw is one of my favorite scenes ever. It works. It works really hard.
Yeah, and also, like Saw, this is another movie that gets your rocks going by being in one place for pretty much the entire movie.
Ooh, I love those single location films.
You do.
I really
sense
do.
of being trapped.
Yeah, I think I've been reflecting on that, actually, if you'll indulge me. I just moved out of a city somewhat notable for feeling entrapping, the sprawling, densely packed metropolis of New York City, to a comparatively much
city known for nothing at all.
Sorry, are you suggesting Cleveland is known for nothing at all? We just won the basketball thing, you fucking
that's right.
dick. Yeah. And the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, you guys won that.
Show.
Um,
Alt comedian Dave Hill. A
Never heard of him.
thriving hardcore punk scene.
That's good.
Good. What's some other stuff? Amanda, what's some other stuff about Cleveland?
Um,
Sandwiches? Pierogies? Cats? Okay, I think at this point, Amanda might be just pointing at things in our apartment. The lake? Oh
yeah,
yeah, we're on a big lake here. But what I'm trying to say is I'm wondering if psychologically what that impact of just not living in a very enclosed environment like New York will have on my movie watching, because I think that I don't know
yeah,
that
yeah.
maybe there's some connection there. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws desperately like I
No, no,
normally
no.
do.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um,
And speaking of New York City
good one.
and the supernatural and women, Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters. So this
Yeah.
movie received a lot of attention for like years, right? Maybe
Oh,
not
I
years,
assume
but
I assume positive, excited attention, Charles.
no,
Oh.
not at all. Which is the weirdest reaction to people suck, man. The whole internet is a terrible place. And it's just like, after now having seen it, because I wasn't really planning on seeing it, I'm not a huge Ghostbusters fan. I like, what's her name? Who was the one who played the science lady?
Uh, what's her name who plays the science lady in the movie about four female scientists?
You're right. The one
What's her
that,
name who plays the science?
I don't know names very well. I don't really
Melissa
understand science
McCarthy,
very
Kate
well.
McKinnon, Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones.
I think it was the first one.
Do you want to describe her with any detail beyond the 2 bullet points of the entire goddamn movie, Charles?
Well, I can't really, because like her main descriptor is sort of, you can't really call people that.
I'm assuming then by means of reading into your oblique commentary, you're talking about Melissa McCarthy, America's Funny Woman.
Was she the black one?
No. By the way,
No.
they Ernie Hudson, Leslie Jones. I remember.
What's that mean?
So Ernie Hudson famously, despite being the 4th Ghostbuster, barely appears in any of the promotional materials from the original film. And funny side note about Ernie Hudson, he's black. So the 3 leads who are white are all over the merchandising, and Ernie Hudson is conspicuously left off, despite being like a crucial part of the movie at its key climaxes. And again, Leslie Jones,
He was in it, right?
he does appear in a cameo in the new
Was he
Ghostbusters.
Was he her father?
Uncle.
Uncle, the guy who owns the hearses.
Yes, the hers. So again,
Yeah.
Leslie Jones, who is one of my favorite parts of this movie, who again plays a pretty integral role in it, barely appears in the trailer, not in any of the posters. A real unavoidable thing. I don't know. It's bizarre to me that the introduction of female leads that was accepted with such viciousness. Leslie Jones was treated horribly on Twitter
I know.
by a bunch of dog people who
Yeah.
were giving her shit. I don't know.
I don't
I mean,
get it.
look, to pull the Band-Aid off, Ghostbusters 2016 is not a great movie.
No.
It has a few. It's summer fare in the most thorough sense of the term. It has a great climactic battle scene. The rest is sort of a flurry of jokes that don't really land and not a great deal of plot. But there's a lot of good performances in it and a lot of things to like about it. And certainly, I've seen about 11 million movies that don't prominently feature women that are way worse. So to look back on the amount of scorn, derision, outright racism, like really blatant sexism, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, this is such a benign movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a Paul Feig movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just don't really get the reaction. It's just so infantile to be like, oh, these were dudes once, and now they're going to turn it into a ladies thing. I just don't really understand, especially like there were reviews of the movie that came out where people hadn't even seen it, and people were like actively refusing to see the movie before, like, I'm not going to review this movie because I'm not going to see this movie because it's about women in the role instead of men, and then I sort of lost their argument as to why that should be a problem.
Well, sometimes people do a thing that drives me crazy where they they suggest that a basic observation about a reality of something is a criticism of it, when in fact it's simply stating a choice that is so bedrock to the thing they're talking about that it's impossible for me to understand what issue they're taking with it. So like, it would be like going to see like a harsh noise artist and being like, well, that's not musical. And it's like, well, I think they know it's not musical. That's a choice they made. So let's watch it with assuming that choice is just part of the world that we're stepping into. So like the sort of shock and I don't know, it's very strange to me. I don't know. It's a crazy world we live in, Charles. There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know if you keep up with the news.
I haven't really.
Oh, don't worry about it. There's an election.
Yeah. Sure, people are dying.
Look, I laughed during Ghostbusters. I oohed and awed at what I think is one of the best 3D battle scenes I've ever seen at the climax.
Did you see it in 3D?
I saw it in 3 dimensions, sir.
Oh, wow. I only see it in 2D. I don't really see 3D
Fuck you.
movies. Well,
Oh.
I have glasses, so it's really hard to wear glasses over glasses for a long time.
Hey,
And then,
I think a sob story 40 minutes into this episode is just that's the right tone to strike, Charles.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it makes everything a little gray. Haven't you noticed that?
It does seem to do that.
So I
Let
don't
me
really
say
like
this.
that. I mean,
We
I
mentioned this
figured-
before, but the Mad Max Fury Road dust storm sequence was the first 3D set piece that I saw where I was completely sold on it. The Avatar floating mountains thing was pretty cool, and heaven knows in that movie, literally the only good part. But Mad Max sold me on 3D and convinced me that it can actually help tell stories visually in a way that deepens the film. And I thought that the Times Square proton pack blast battle at the climax of Ghostbusters in 3D was fucking sick. And they in the 3D version, they do it letterbox style. So there's like it's in the movie in the theater they shoot it letterbox so that occasionally things like pop out over the lip of the letterbox, which I thought was delightful, and I really liked that touch.
That's nice. That actually reminds me of my first like 3D experience that really sold me on 3D. Was My Bloody Valentine 3D, where you see a shotgun pan over my head.
That's sick.
You see a little person get thrown at me.
Well, you certainly bring it to life with language.
But what were you saying? Because I wasn't really listening.
Oh, that's fine. I've come to assume as much, and I dial it in appropriately.
You're talking about mountains?
Yeah, I was talking about mountains, Charles. This was... The Ghostbusters suffers from a great deal of self-awareness and having a bit too much fun in the writer's room that made it feel like a lot of jokes pasted together, some of which are very funny, and a lot of which come at the expense of the plot and veracity of the setting, giving it the life the original has. Because the original feels very lived in, which is a phrase that I use a lot. But you feel like you're in sort of like a worn out, weary 1980s New York with its rich cast of characters and maladies and frustrations. And in this movie, the pace is so frenzied. And I read on the internet, source of all truth and justice in this broken world, Infowars.com.
That where everybody yells at ladies for being ladies in a movie. So
sorry that those soldiers of the First Amendment are exercising their free speech, Charles, you fascist.
They're doing a good job.
Great job, guys. Yeah, you don't really get a sense of where you are. Like, it just keeps churning forward relentlessly. But no, the original cut was over 4 hours long, which is, I think,
absurd.
We can all agree that's a bit too much Ghostbusters, Paul.
Yeah, Paul. It's a bit too much of anything. As a writer-director, I feel like, you should probably realize that if your first cut's going to be... Like, you can tell it's going to be 4 hours, right? That's pretty much a minute a page sort of deal, right?
Now,
Right,
if
when you're
this
writing
was,
things.
I would love to see Tarkovsky, Wim Wenders, and Paul Thomas Anderson each make their own 4-hour-long
Yeah,
Ghostbusters.
actually, I would too.
I think that's basically Solaris in so many words. Yeah, if Wim Wenders made a film about 4 women silently driving in a truck around New York, dispassionately thinking about the ghosts of their pasts and like the America that once was, yeah, 4 hours, sure.
I could do it.
Yeah, get in there. But no, Paul Feig, 4 hours, really?
Come on.
That's fucking endless, man. So again, even at like a more lean 2 hours, it feels like things have been cut out with great enthusiasm, and it kind of barrels forward in a way that doesn't give it that earned sense of drama that you want from a movie like this.
No, I would say that not only does it feel like things are cut out, it feels like the most important things are cut out, and all we're left with is this sort of rambling jokes connecting with little plot points. But yeah, I mean, all right, I'm gonna get into it now because I have seen the movie. I have no credentials really, but I do have 21st century authority to talk about it in this microphone. And it wasn't a very good movie because it was, if it had been the jokes, if the jokes had been exceptional, I could have maybe forgiven the fact that no character was really fleshed out to any sort of depth. But the jokes really didn't hit very well some of the times. I certainly laughed. I wasn't terrible, but it didn't come through as just a straight comedy. There was no sense of growth or depth or anything going on between the people. Like there was that supposed, conflict about her not believing in ghosts anymore for a little while, and then that just went away. It wasn't super interesting, and it felt very much like a Paul Feig movie. It just felt like a really bad one. Like I like Bridesmaids. Josh?
So, do you think I'm here? I'm giving you the dramatic space to let your words land.
Good.
Yeah, I feel that. I think all that is pretty on point. I think there was this deep anxiety to be likable and funny in it that, of course, ironically, mirrors pretty adequately the pressures and stresses put on women in the public eye in this still stunningly regressive culture we live in. That it kind of sacrificed. It didn't take chances. They really wanted people to laugh, and they really wanted it to be, largely a joke-driven enterprise, and it lost a lot. What did you think
Can I
about
ask
the
you a
climactic
question?
fight, though?
Okay. Ask me a question.
The
What
climactic
I think about
fight.
what?
The climactic fight.
Well, I only saw it in 2 dimensions, and I thought it was pretty boring.
Okay.
But I can see it being like totally wrapped up in the world of flying ghosts and shit. I didn't know, man. I've said this all before. I'm not a huge CGI fight scene person. I don't really get into it. They're just sort of boring. It doesn't really do anything because it's not real. So it's not really captivating. It's boring. I was glad when it was over, I think.
Okay, so you've answered my question in kind, so I feel it is most appropriate that I now answer your question, Charles.
Oh yeah, that's it. What did you think of the other scientist?
Is this like a fucking game where you think of the most vague possible questions
Yeah.
about this movie?
This is a real question.
What did you think
of
about the other scientist?
The glasses scientist.
Oh, Kate McKinnon.
Yeah. What did you
Oh
think
yeah,
of that?
that's a really talented, funny woman who in this movie just has shtick, and none of it lands.
No.
And it's quite broad, and I can't stress enough that this is someone who's made me laugh a lot on Saturday Night Live. She's had some really great moments. This was pretty brutal, man.
It either made me feel like a fucking idiot because I feel like she knew exactly what she was doing, and I had no idea what she was doing. So I felt just either really dumb or like had no idea what was going on. But her character was like, that's the thing, is if there was a reason why she was acting like that, maybe I would have gotten into it. But she really just acted like a fucking crazy person for potentially 4 hours. but we
Yeah,
only
no,
got to see
that's
a
the
little
cut.
bit of it.
The real long takes of that.
Yep.
That's what I want to see.
Long takes of her just like moving weirdly. And
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. She's this sort of like ceaseless, like physical gag machine. And I gotta fault old Feig on this one because, like, damn man, you gotta rein that in. You know, you're the director. She's funny. She can do funny things. Call your shots though. Like I guess that whole mile a minute trying to keep it engaging without a break was it suffocated the performances. And again, yeah, there's no development of that character. We have know nothing about her. She's just kind of wacky and does wacky shit. And it's a real loss. It's a real loss. I think this is a classic example of a movie that I think could have been really good. I really think that. Maybe that's naive. Maybe it's not wise to resuscitate beloved franchises in general, regardless of gendered casting. But yeah, this was a missed opportunity. I don't regret seeing it because I am on record as a popcorn movie kind of guy. I like big, dumb summer blockbusters. This was a perfectly adequate, above average production. But knowing what it could have been, and certainly held up next to its predecessor, it's really thankless. And you can blame a toxic media environment and a relentlessly sexist culture on aspects of its production. Because again, I really feel like they probably made a lot of choices.
They must
feeling
have,
like it had to be something because of these fucking garbage people.
Yeah.
And you know that takes it to a certain extent. But yeah, a lack of risk taking held it back. And they throw cameos in the movie really aggressively, like as if, you know, the requisite nods to Aykroyd, Murray, and Hudson. And actually, there's also a bust of Harold Ramis in the early shots of the film in the university. But yeah, the parts where it sort of paid homage didn't land. I would say a rough estimate, 75% of the jokes don't really land. I like the big climax. I like some of it. Just kind of disappointing.
I liked when Bill Murray died. I thought that was funny.
Well, I remember he talked about, there's an interview from many years ago where he said he would only appear in a third Ghostbusters if he died at the beginning of the film, which is amazing. So I like that, yeah, he is disposed of in this in a very comic way.
I'm going to say something that's going to make me initially sound like one of those garbage men you were talking about.
Here we go. Let's
do it. But I'll continue and become a non-garbage man immediately after. So we're talking about cameos. For me, I think the funniest moments of the film were from the cameos, which were all men, because finally the women get to be the stars, so all the men were in the cameo positions. And, you know, that might sound sexist saying that the men were funnier than the women, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm unfortunately saying that the cameos worked because they had nothing, like there was no presence for them. They were just jokes, and the jokes landed. Unfortunately, the main characters were so poorly constructed that as a serious character, because there should have been something serious going on for me to, you know, continue going with it. Like their friendship should have been like Bridesmaids. That was really about these two women and their friendship. And I think Paul wanted to sort of continue that discussion, but it just really didn't come across. So not only did they get most of the screen time, so that means their jokes had to be more, which means more of them are going to fail. And then you have a sort of wasted talent doing really menial jobs, not landing anything emotional or important either. So it was just sort of sad to see such talented people get cast in what should have been a really fun movie and just watch it sort of fall apart and be sort of boring 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think this was sort of like had an inherent born to fail quality to it. And I wish they could do it all over again. Who knows? Maybe a director's cut will come out that will blow my mind. That's totally possible.
The opening I thought was great with, what's his name? The little Silicon
Zach
Valley
Woods. Guy. The wonderful Zach
hilarious.
Woods. The two jokes that work in that, he talks about the mansion at the turn of the century having all the modern amenities at the time, including an anti-Irish fence and a face bidet.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Face
Those were
Bidet
good
was
jokes.
wonderful, and his delivery is so good because he's one of those weird TV actors that isn't potentially a great actor, but can play a person that doesn't exist, but plays like he's just like slightly exaggerated, and he delivers those lines very well. He's very serious in these, being this caretaker for a haunted house, but he was great. I like the little delivery man and his wonton. That was a good recurring gag.
I'll get to Melissa McCarthy. I think she owned the soup ratio bit at the end was funny.
Oh, absolutely. That was good. But what made it even better was seeing Suicide Squad immediately following Ghostbusters. And if there's a movie that's even worse at pacing, even worse at character development, even worse at action sequences, it's Suicide Squad, which was a total shithole of a mess.
You really got that in there like a little surprise treat at the end of the meal. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, I did do a double feature to make my time at the theater more economical. I usually buy one ticket and then just sneak between theaters.
You're comfortable being on record admitting to being a criminal and stealing from the intellectual property of some of America's most talented funny people like Jared Leto.
Yeah, and they tried to put an end to it. Most theaters, they'll say what movie they're playing outside of it. But this theater decided to stop doing that because of people like me, and they just put the numbers. But now when I go and buy my tickets, I just look up where all the movies are, and I remember them in my head. So then I walk out.
You're a bit of a bad boy, huh? Kind of a take no prisoners, devil may care bad boy.
Yeah, sometimes.
Huh. I feel dangerous when I'm around you. Like, like anything could happen. Like, I don't know who I am anymore.
Anything. We might end up in Theater 8 immediately after being in Theater 7. And you don't know what that means.
No, I don't.
This guy does.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that edge, You get out of one, and there's still 10 minutes, so you sort of just hide in the bathroom for 5 minutes. And then you sneak in, and you sort of walk, you walk backwards, so they think that you're walking forwards out of the movie, but you're really walking in. And I found that's really successful. That's a good one. This was really good. Justin and we got into a large trench coat and pretended to be one person once. That was classic. And then the time we brought Speed in. So yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry?
Just, no, we just are. We have a good time at the movies.
Yeah, it sounds fucking awesome, Charles. So, any more fun tips? Or
no, not today. This could be a new corner, though. The ending corner would be the how to
super stoked on that corner.
Max Theater corner.
To pivot away from that terrible segment, putting Batman vs Superman against Suicide Squad, did it change your impressions of Batman vs Superman?
Oh, did you see Suicide Squad?
I did not, and I have no intention to. It looks terrible.
And what was your question? I wasn't listening.
How does it stack up to Batman vs Superman, which you may recall we reviewed on the podcast nigh on a month or two ago?
That's a great question.
Because that got a lot of shit from people, and I think we were pretty generous to it.
Oh, that's true. We gave it some sort of hidden. There was some hidden something or other going on in Mr. Affleck's torso. I would say that Batman v Superman was a better movie than Suicide Squad. Yeah, I'd say that.
Well, hopefully we've redeemed the public's vision of one of our great treasures, Zack Snyder's vision of two men desperately seeking validation from their dead fathers. And I think that takes us to a fitting close to this week's episode of The Real Deal with Josh and Charles. Charles, any closing remarks or thoughts or visions of the future you want to share with our listening audience of 7?
And
take your time with this. This is really your time to shine.
Well, it's got to be good. And I'm just going to take out all these, post. Going to do it in post.
Oh, this will be edited
None
out.
of this ever happened.
Yeah.
No, I got nothing.
Okay. And I similarly have very little. But keep watching those TV screens. Shit. Fuck me. Watch movies. They're good for you. Keep going to the silver screen and eating your popcorn dreams with a with a Diet Coke. Shit.
So don't worry about it. I'm just gonna get the good one. So keep going.
Okay,
We'll
just
get the good one.
get the good. You're gonna definitely edit this part out.
Absolutely. Take 4.
Okay, great. Take 4. Keep loving those movies, because Lord knows we will. Josh and Charles.
And that was the good one.
I feel good about that.
Yeah, let's keep it.